White cops lie about a black woman in court shocked when she flashes her CIA clearance. The courtroom was packed to the brim, tension so thick it felt as if the air itself had taken sides. On one side sat Simone Davis, a composed, strikingly confident black woman in her early 40s. Her smooth, ebony skin caught the harsh courtroom lighting, and her tailored gray suit exuded an air of authority. But today, she was seated as the defendant, accused of obstruction of justice and assaulting 2 police officers. On the other side of the courtroom sat officers Timothy Grayson and Daniel Willis, 2 white men with years of experience on the force. Their uniforms were crisp, and their demeanor was smug, as though they were already celebrating their victory. Their testimony had painted Simone as an angry black woman, uncooperative and dangerous. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Your Honor, Grayson had declared earlier. Miss Davis was belligerent during a routine traffic stop. She verbally abused us and then escalated the situation by attempting to strike Officer Willis when he tried to restrain her. Willis chimed in, "We only acted to subdue her for our safety and the safety of others. Her behavior was erratic and aggressive." Their testimony was rehearsed and convincing, too convincing. They were the perfect image of law-abiding officers who had simply been doing their jobs. Simone's lawyer, a sharp defense attorney named Mark Harris, stood to cross-examine. "Officer Grayson, you claim my client attempted to strike you. Can you describe the nature of this alleged assault?" Grayson shifted slightly. "She swung her arm at me when I asked her to step out of the vehicle. I had to dodge to avoid being hit." "And yet," Harris said, raising an eyebrow, "there's no record of any injury to you or Officer Willis. No dashcam footage corroborates this alleged attack. Why is that?" Grayson's face tightened. "The dashcam was malfunctioning that day. It happens sometimes." Harris smirked, sensing the unraveling thread. Convenient. The prosecution's case rested heavily on the officer's word. They claimed that Simone had been speeding, failed to provide identification, and resisted arrest violently. However, there were no witnesses, no video evidence, and no credible explanation for the series of supposed coincidences that left the burden of proof on their words alone. When Simone's turn to speak arrived, she stood with an air of unshakable confidence. "Your Honor," she began, her voice steady, "I've remained quiet so far, allowing my lawyer to argue my case. But now I believe it's time to address this farce directly." The courtroom went silent, all eyes fixed on her. "On the night of the alleged incident," she continued, "I was driving home from a classified assignment. I did not resist arrest, nor did I behave in the way these officers have described. In fact, I believe their actions were motivated by something other than the law." The prosecutor scoffed. "Motivated by what, Miss Davis?" Simone paused, reaching into her bag. The officers exchanged nervous glances. She pulled out a sleek black wallet and flipped it open. Gasps rippled through the courtroom as the shiny badge and identification card of the Central Intelligence Agency were revealed. "Motivated," Simone said, her voice cutting through the murmurs, "by the assumption that I was just another black woman they could intimidate and silence. But as you can see, I am not just any black woman. I am a senior operative with the CIA, and I take threats, be they foreign or domestic, very seriously." The officer's smug expressions dissolved into shock and panic. "Your Honor," Simone continued, "I have evidence that refutes every claim these officers have made. My vehicle is equipped with surveillance tools for my assignments, and the events of that night were fully recorded. I have already submitted this evidence to the court." Judge Ellen Monroe, an experienced and fair woman, looked to the court clerk, who confirmed the receipt of the evidence. "Let's play the recording," the judge ordered. The courtroom fell into an eerie silence as the audio began. It captured every moment of the stop. The officers laughing about Simone's car before approaching her. Grayson telling Willis, "Let's see how this one reacts." And their escalating aggression despite Simone's calm and measured responses. When Simone asked why she was being pulled over, Grayson responded with a mocking tone, "Because I said so." When she provided her license and registration, Willis made a disparaging remark under his breath. And when Simone asked for clarification about the stop, Grayson threatened to drag her out of the car if she didn't comply. There was no aggression, no assault, only Simone's repeated requests for clarity and their hostility in response. The recording ended with Willis muttering, "She thinks she's smarter than us. Let's see how smart she feels in a holding cell." The courtroom erupted in murmurs of outrage. The judge banged her gavel for silence. "Officers Grayson and Willis," Judge Monroe said, her voice ice-cold, "do you have anything to say for yourselves?" Grayson stammered, "Your Honor, we didn't know she was CIA. If we had—" The judge cut him off. "And what difference would that have made? Are you implying that your behavior would have been different if you had known her occupation? That you selectively choose who to treat with respect?" The officers were speechless. Judge Monroe turned to Simone. "Miss Davis, on behalf of this court, I extend my sincerest apologies for the treatment you endured. The charges against you are dismissed with prejudice, and this court will recommend an investigation into the conduct of these officers." Simone nodded graciously but firmly. "Thank you, Your Honor. However, I'd also like to pursue legal action against these officers for defamation, false arrest, and abuse of power. This cannot go unaddressed." The judge nodded. "You have every right to do so, Miss Davis." As Simone walked out of the courtroom, her head held high. The officers were left to face the consequences of their actions. For Simone, this was more than just a personal victory. It was a step toward accountability and a reminder that justice, though sometimes delayed, cannot be denied. The courtroom emptied slowly, the murmurs of disbelief and indignation trailing out with the crowd. Simone walked down the steps of the courthouse with her lawyer, Mark Harris, at her side. Outside, the air was crisp, but it felt lighter now, as if the weight of the injustice had started to dissipate. Mark turned to her, his expression a mix of admiration and concern. "You handled that beautifully, Simone. But you know this isn't over. Those officers are going to try to squirm their way out of accountability." Simone's lips curled into a determined smile. "Let them try. They underestimated me once. That mistake won't happen again." The legal wheels turned swiftly. Within days, an internal investigation was launched into officers Grayson and Willis. Simone's evidence, combined with the damning courtroom performance, made their misconduct impossible to ignore. They were suspended without pay pending further inquiry. Simone, however, wasn't content to let the matter rest with their suspension. She filed a civil suit, seeking damages for the psychological distress and reputational harm she endured. Mark guided her through the process, but Simone was fully in control of her narrative. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was standing up for countless others who didn't have the resources or authority to fight back. The story caught the attention of powerful allies. Within weeks, Simone was approached by prominent civil rights organizations. They wanted her to speak at forums and events, using her experience to highlight systemic issues in law enforcement and the justice system. Though she had always operated behind the scenes in her CIA career, Simone knew this was a battle worth stepping into the spotlight for. Meanwhile, Grayson and Willis found themselves under increasing scrutiny. Their past records, previously shielded by departmental loyalty, were now being examined with a fine-tooth comb. What emerged was a disturbing pattern of complaints, primarily from Black and minority individuals, alleging misconduct and abuse of power. The officers were summoned back to the courthouse weeks later, but this time as defendants in Simone's civil suit. The roles were reversed, and the once confident men now looked small and unsure as they sat at the defense table. Simone watched them with a calm, unwavering gaze. Mark's opening arguments were sharp and precise. "This case is about more than one incident of misconduct," he declared. "It's about a pattern of behavior, a pattern that not only harmed my client, but also damaged public trust in those sworn to serve and protect." The evidence was laid bare once again, but this time, the courtroom delved deeper into the officers' histories. Witnesses came forward, recounting similar experiences with Grayson and Willis. A young Black man tearfully described how they had humiliated him during a stop, accusing him of theft without cause. A Latina woman shared how they had belittled her for her accent during a routine traffic stop. The gallery was silent, the weight of the testimonies pressing down on everyone present. Simone's case had become a reckoning not just for the two officers, but for the entire department that had enabled their behavior. When it was Simone's turn to take the stand, she spoke with clarity and poise. "I'm not here because I want revenge," she said. "I'm here because accountability is the cornerstone of justice. These officers thought they could lie about me, intimidate me, and walk away unscathed. But their actions have consequences, not just for me, but for everyone they've wronged." Her words resonated deeply. By the end of the trial, the jury delivered a decisive verdict in Simone's favor. The officers were found liable for damages and ordered to pay a significant sum. But more importantly, the case ignited a broader conversation about reform within the police department. Simone didn't stop there. With her newfound platform, she began working with activists and policymakers to advocate for mandatory body cameras, better accountability mechanisms, and enhanced training for law enforcement officers. Her efforts led to tangible changes, and within a year, the department had implemented several reforms. Grayson and Willis, stripped of their badges and facing public disgrace, faded into obscurity. But their fall served as a warning to others who believed their positions placed them above the law. Simone's life returned to a new normal, but she carried the lessons of the experience with her. She continued her work with the CIA, her resilience and intelligence earning her even greater respect among her peers. But outside of her career, she became a symbol of strength and justice, proof that even the most entrenched systems could be challenged and changed. One evening, as she sat on her porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, Mark called her with an update. "The department just announced they're instituting a zero-tolerance policy for misconduct," he said. "That's your legacy, Simone." She smiled, her heart swelling with quiet pride. "It's not just mine, Mark. It's for everyone who's ever been silenced. We showed them that the truth can't be ignored."